It is Claire Chang, that is founding partner of igniteXL Ventures. Thanks for joining us tonight, Claire.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you to share a little bit about Claire's background. So Claire's a graduate of SFSU, and she has extensive experience not only in the founder and investment community, but also the Asian business community in San Francisco. And as herself will share a little bit more about her story as an investor that has built her own fund. So excited to hear a little bit more of that. If you could share with the audience, what is igniteXL Ventures?
Yeah, igniteXL Ventures, and a lot of people ask me, okay, so what is that? What does the name mean? And ignite, obviously, to spark innovation. Really, that's where the ignite comes from. But then XL part is kind of the interesting part. It could actually has a double meaning, right? One is XL, like X large, go big or go home, right? We really, as investors, we're really looking for companies that can scale. The founders really have big vision. So really kind of, accentuating that go big or go home. And then another piece to that is because we started as an accelerator, we actually were a global accelerator prior to being a fund. And so that accelerate. And so we were trying to come up with accelerate's way too big. If we do igniteXL, accelerate, that doesn't work. So we sort of shorten it with XL, but also, had that double meaning of go big or go home. So that's where the igniteXL ended up being. We love the name. We had already, built up quite a bit of a branding around that, brand equity on that. So we decided to keep the name when we, pivoted to a fund. So what is igniteXL Ventures? We are it's a global seed fund. We are based in Silicon Valley, but we do invest globally. We are going after $5 trillion global wellness market. It is with the very conscious consumers that are really, understand the self-care, demand for transparency. This is a highly transferable product and services globally. So we're very excited to be tackling this market with entrepreneurs who are providing services that helps us to be well, healthy, confident. And we invest anything from not just what we put on our skin, but really we're talking about supplements to fitness to mental wellness. Even I mentioned, hey, wine drinking would consider also be wellness as well. Just really everything that helps us to be well and healthy.
And why did you all start on the intersection of technology and the health and wellness portion?
Sure. We've seen this transformation happening, given when we say we, sort of in Silicon Valley, we've seen how technology transformed these traditional industries like auto industry to agriculture industry. And what we saw happening in the personal care, beauty industry was that consumers were becoming much more empowered in terms of being able to, obtain a ton of information on the web, of course, how they discover products. It no longer was just buying products through department stores, right? There's so many different ways that we discover products. And consumers are becoming more and more conscious in terms of the kind of companies, the brands that they back. And so really technology is what that was at the core, really enabling these types of changes. So I think it's not just what we saw digital transformation happening in this beauty and wellness sector, but also cultural transformation from the consumers being empowered and demanding more transparency around ingredients that's going into products, also the corporate practice, and then actual sustainability in terms of the product packaging, supply chain, all of those issues. So that's where we believe technology really plays a key role. And so when we say beauty and wellness, we're really looking at tech-enabled beauty and wellness companies.
And can you share a little bit more about the size of investments you make and what type of founders you're looking for?
Sure. So we are pre-seed, seed focused, which means that we're going in really early. Typically, we're the first institutional check, and our check size ranges from anywhere from 100,000 to 500,000. What else?
Is there post
The
product,
type of
post
founders, yes.
revenue, or is there I mean, I know you said internationally, but is there any other constraints, geographic restrictions, or
Actually, no. I mean, we like to, so yes, we are global in that. I think just because of my background, I don't shy away from entrepreneurs who may not look typically like what we call Silicon Valley entrepreneur profile. So we're very comfortable with talking to entrepreneurs where English is second language, right? What we do look for, if it's outside of the US, we do like to see a lead investor that we can work with locally. Because, for example, we have an investment in Brazil called Dr. Jones, which is a men's skincare as well as subscription service for personal care. And they're trying to be the Dollar Shave Club of Brazil. Brazil is the fourth largest in terms of the beauty personal care market. It's number 2 in terms of the men's skincare market. And we've seen Dollar Shave Club really succeed, take off in the US. So we're looking at a proven model that's being applied to the local markets in Brazil. In addition to that, the lead investor, Estella Ventures, Daniel, who we worked, co-invested together, work closely. We sat on the board on a monthly basis to support the company. So I would say we don't shy away from international deals as long as we have a co-leading investor that can work with us closely.
Got it. And that's a great tip also, like the co-lead with the local insight to help
Exactly.
de-risk that investment. No, that's great. And what are some, especially in this space in the technical health and wellness, what are some of the trends that you're seeing at this time that at that intersection of some of the beauty, health and wellness that you talk about, and then also technology?
So for example, we have an investment in this company called Rivia. They're actually just launching. They were just in the news. And what they are is a personalized skincare or precision skincare. So, skincare, when we talk about it, there, we have tons. I don't know about you, Sergio, but, even when you go to Sephora or, just anywhere where there's a lot of beauty products, how do you know what to pick, right? And of course, it's a friend's recommendation, or you've read something about the product. Maybe some, consumers, they're into clean ingredients. So there are particulars that the customers look for. But I would say 50% or more of the US population suffer from sensitive skin. They're still not understanding fully their skin condition. And so what Rivia does is really combining technology from machine learning data that they collect, also marrying that with biology, individual biology, to understand your core skin condition, as well as incorporating your lifestyle, right? Because there's so much data that we can collect from our phone, and being able to create a personalized skincare just for you is really the kind of this beauty and wellness category, but now adding technology and science, we're able to take it to a whole nother level that's creating more customized experience. Isn't a good example of what we talk about. Where is this going to take us? It's going to be much more personalized, customized, even I think in terms of underserved markets where typically we, if we look at just, again, skincare, hair care, generally it's made for the mass products that actually has not traditionally addressed, let's say, textured hair, and now we're seeing a ton of entrepreneurs recognizing, hey, these products in the mass market really doesn't fit our needs. And so, they're leveraging, again, technology to better understand the conditions of the curly hair, types of curly hair, and being able to create solutions to address these underserved, but huge market opportunities.
Amazing. I wanted to shift for you to have a chance to tell the audience a little bit about your story. Very unique. I know you're have been you were born in Korea, and then also have experience in in finance before making your way into VC. Can you talk
Actually, no,
about?
Sergio. I
Okay.
actually don't come from this industry. That's why I think that's what makes me so unique and unfit candidate for this job. That's why I hope my story will inspire some of the listeners.
I would love,
Because
yeah, I would love for you to share that. Sorry, I thought your time at what is it, the Westlake Global Management,
I
but
see.
you're
No, I was actually a corporate marketing director there. And we had different business units, and that's another whole story. I had a ton of, fun there, working with senior communities and whatnot. But no, I actually don't come from finance, and I would say that's
that's
not my
amazing.
way. So, I'm an immigrant child. I came to the States with my family when I was 12 years old. My parents, had to work their way up from hourly wages to owning their own small business, the typical groceries chain, grocery store, to dry cleaners. And, I learned early on about entrepreneurship through my parents by going and negotiating, buying used refrigerators for the grocery store. I mean, these were things that I actually had to do on behalf of my parents because they didn't speak English. So I learned that early on. And, I come from a large family. I had 6 siblings. So we really had to kind of earn our money to, buy things that were outside of the essentials, right? And so high school, I wanted to, join this drill team. I don't know if you remember, but drill team's like this awesome, dance team, right, for games and whatnot. And, to pay for the uniforms and stuff, you need, it's pretty expensive, and my parents couldn't afford it. So I was just dying to get to be able to work. And so the legal age at that time was 14 and a half. And so I literally counted days to be able to go and apply to this restaurant as a bus person to clean the tables, right? So I can earn money and pay for things that I wanted to, do. So fast forward, I was on my way to UC Davis to go to college, and I was dating already, and I felt, hey, do I get married or do I go to school? And I said, okay, you know what? I can always go back to school, but I can't find the love of my life. This might be the only chance. Terrible, terrible child, right? Like the nightmare for any parents. So I decided to literally run away and get married, have children. I have 2 lovely children, by the way. And I went back to school after I had my 2 children. So started my career late, worked at Visa International briefly, but left and decided to start my own consulting firm with my best friends. And that was really my foray into the global sort of arena, working with entrepreneurs from Asia, Korea, Japan, China, making their ways to Silicon Valley. And then thereafter, I went on to work with a Korean government sponsored incubator, where again, they were supporting these entrepreneurs that were making their way to Silicon Valley. And so I had plenty of exposure working with these early stage companies, expanding their markets. And then eventually led me to actually even working with the very early stage startup. I was the 6th person with 5 guys, living, working in San Francisco, sleeping, working, and I don't know if you watch HBO Silicon Valley, literally we were saying, we're going to go and change the world. and just really believed that what we were doing was just, world-changing idea, and so we were literally going after Google by trying to create this search engine. Had a great time. I mean, it was very exhausting. After I left after close to 2 years there, and that was kind of the start of this whole social media boom. I left, and then I was just completely exhausted. I took some time off, and then that's when this whole accelerator started taking off, and that sort of got me thinking about, okay, all these experiences that I built over the years, how can I take that and work with entrepreneurs to help them at that early stage? And so that igniteXL Global Accelerator was born in 2014. and work with, specifically I started with Korea just because there was a ton of, startup activities going on in Korea at that time. So I worked with, over 3 years, I worked with over 200 founders coming from Korea, making their way into Silicon Valley. And I think it was through that experience I started making my investments into these early stage companies and recognizing that, okay, capital, and of course I don't come from a wealthy family. Remember, I told you I come from a family of small businesses. But capital really was the essential resource for these early stage founders. So, and also, the idea of creating a fund really came out of that experience. But then also, how do I think about, how to strategize what kind of fund I'm going to create? And when we looked at the VC landscape, we had 95%, and still is true today, 95% of the check writers are men. Only 5% represent female investors who can write checks. And many female founders were frustrated that they didn't have female investors go to pitch their ideas, because most of these male investors did not understand the values. Many of them actually, if it's anything to do with feminine products, they didn't want to touch the product. And and I remember one female entrepreneur just really frustrated, telling me, if I hear one more male investor saying, I have to call my wife, to understand what's going on. So there was a huge need. And when you look at, the females who are the main decision makers when it comes to consumer personal care product purchases, it's 85%. So there was a huge disparity, right, in terms of these females really understanding intimately the problems and solutions, and yet when they build these companies, they weren't being recognized, and there's still a huge gap in that. And I think the third pillar for our investment thesis is also coming from the fact that Asia at that time, K-beauty was really rising. Korea has a huge, cosmetic skincare manufacturer, and also consumer, in terms of trend, really Asia is leading, right? China, of course, with TikTok and all of these live streams as well. So I think having that access to Korea as well as Asia, and being able to lean in on the insights and applying that to what's happening here in the US and the rest of the world gave us an advantage. And so kind of taking those three pillars, that's how we built our investment thesis around pre-seed and then beauty and wellness.
Amazing. And so you became almost the gateway for entrepreneurs coming from Korea to the US. Can you speak to, I think there's a perfect opportunity to what are some of the unique challenges and unique things you did for those entrepreneurs, especially, whether from Asian backgrounds or
Sure.
international, that beyond the need for capital. I think all the entrepreneurs, what are some of those unique challenges that you were enabled to help them come to Silicon Valley?
There's a lot in terms of, what the needs of these entrepreneurs are, but I would say a few things that are very common amongst all these entrepreneurs. One, network, right? Being able to go to the right person for whether it be even legal help, marketing help. How do you find them? How do you know they're the right ones? Just because they speak English, just because they have a really nice website does not mean that they know what they're doing, and their pricing, what's the right pricing? So there's a ton of sort of questions and ambiguity around, selecting the right partners and service providers. So that's one, just because of, the fact that I have a huge network of these service providers and know who the right players are who can work with these early stage startups, right? So that's one. Another, I would say, really common aspect that we've helped a lot is what we call customer development. Many of these companies were coming to us with already a proven product solutions in their local markets, specifically Korea. Now, just because the product worked in Korea does not mean that it would work in the US. And there's a ton of market research, but more importantly, really talking to the potential customers and understanding their needs, and understanding how to position your product to that particular customer segment was really something that was challenging to many of these Korean founders, because Korea is a very homogeneous country, and it's 50 million country population, right? And so their understanding of diversity is very lacks the understanding of diversity, right? Because that's not what they are used to. So they think of US, they know that it's a huge market, but they also think that it's just a very one homogeneous market, which is not true at all. And so that's probably, I would say, one of the really important and sort of the common pitfall that we recognize, that we addressed early on with each entrepreneur that we work with.
Excellent. And if you were to, and I guess, what are some of the ways that you do that in the accelerator?
You mean our fund? You mean current?
Or you're shifted? That's right. So shifting to the. So that's a question for you. Do you do what in shifting to the fund? What have you stopped doing and started doing? Is there any structure and programming, and you have the fund as well, or just investing? Yep.
Yeah, good question. I use the parenting analogy a lot in investing, and I'm still a novice investor, right? It's only been a year. We launched a fund in 2020, and so it's only been a year that I've been investing, as an institutional investor. So I still have many, many years to learn to be a good investor. But I would say, at least what I'm recognizing is that, with these founders that we work with, yes, we're providing capital. Yes, we're there to support them, provide advice when there is a need, but we cannot go in and basically dictate what they do, right? Accelerator, it was a time-bound program where they have certain milestones that they needed to meet. And of course, we also have that with our entrepreneurs as well. But it's very different when you are an accelerator and you're in this community base and you're constantly kind of, being compared, or, competing or collaborating with other founders in the same batch, versus when you are working with individual founders, they're at their own pace. Every founder has different sort of ways how they work, how they learn. And so you sort of have to let them know that you're there and support them. Whenever entrepreneurs, how do you work with founders? And we would say, hey, very hands-on. We love working with entrepreneurs closely, because that's why we chose to be in the pre-seed seed stage. However, if you don't think that you need our help and you're doing fine, that means that that's fine. We are there for you as much as you need us, is kind of our approach. But we could work with that. Like, for example, we're helping our entrepreneur raise their Series A right now. We're literally, reviewing their deck, literally every day, talking to the designers together. We're, looking over the finance, how he's preparing the modeling. I mean, just, A to Z. And he loves that. He wants that. And, and so it's really a matter of how much help the entrepreneur needs, and we're there to support them.
Got it. So can you share a little bit, like you said, part of the reason we wanted you guys to highlight igniteXL as a fund, as you shift into the new fund category. Can you share how, from your background, you upskilled to shift more and focus on the financial side of venture investing? Like, how did you make that shift and convince LPs to back you in shifting from your accelerator to now a fund? You're telling them, hey, we're going to stop that and we're going to change. We're changing direction.
Right.
How did you make that transition?
When I was fundraising, I had so many prospective LPs ask me, why do you want to do this? This is really hard. Like, why do you want to do this? And so when I was asked that question the first time, I didn't know how to answer. I basically kind of had this like dumbfounded look, and I'm like, and I had to go back and really think about, okay, why am I doing this? Like, what got me started? And I realized that it wasn't so much that I decided one day, like, I'm going to become a VC. Just because it looks cool, they seem like they know what they're doing. They look like they're smart people. No, I think it was more about having gone through the accelerator business and working with so many amazing founders, and recognizing that the capital was really the key essential resource. So it was really more out of a necessity that I recognized that's what I want to do. Startup world is like this, it's very addictive. Once you're in it, it's really hard to get out. The passion, the energy that that entrepreneurs exude, once you taste that, you can't leave. And so I'm kind of, victim of that. Like I can't get out of this. And for me to continue to work in this area, I want to be relevant. I want to be meaningful. I want to be able to help these amazing entrepreneurs. And that's really how I made that transition, and then started thinking about, okay, so how do I do this? How do I win in this game? And that's where that strategy, the pieces came together.
Awesome. Well, I know we'll come back to that, but I did want to talk about as we're advancing some of the current events. I know in particular there's been violence against the Asian community in Atlanta, and we talk about the anti-Asian sentiment there, and of course communities are coming together, standing up, fighting back. But can you share a little bit from your perspective? How is this impacting some of the Asian founders that you coach and mentor and have invested in?
First, my heart goes out to all the Asian Americans, or just anybody who's been victims of any hate act, right? It's just not acceptable and not tolerant. And I think it's really unfortunate that I think it's such a hard time for everyone now with pandemic and everything that's going on. It's almost like people are looking for a scapegoat, and Asian Americans obviously are the target right now. And so it is really a tough time. And, I have so many friends reaching out and say, hey, our thoughts are with you, and I have to tell all my friends, please do not walk, by yourself. Make sure you're carrying, you're walking with someone, or carry something with you to be able to defend yourself if something were to happen. So it is really tough time. I did have an entrepreneur ask me, she's launching specifically this more of a, incorporating traditional sort of this Chinese herb medicine practice, incorporating into this wellness product and services. And she's like, Claire, do you think it's okay? Do you think it's the right time? And the fact that she had to ask that question really just was heartbreaking, right? And my response to her was, absolutely. I think, to me, these hate crimes really is coming out of ignorance, right? Like, we don't understand. And if we can, to the extent that we can really help everyone better understand that, hey, that's doing our part to hopefully mitigate what's going on. So my advice to entrepreneurs is, don't let this stop you from what you need to do. Be conscious of it, of course, be aware. But I think that it shouldn't stop us from what we need to do, what we believe in.
Are there any particular challenges? I mean, since you've been ingrained in leadership in the Asian community in San Francisco and working with many founders, are there any particular challenges that Asian founders face, or that you see most commonly, and just so that we're more aware of them and
Sure.
and thinking about how we can help them? So go ahead.
Not so much as it relates to what's happening today with Asian hate, but just more in general. I think there are many layers to it, but I think one one of the misperception is that we have this model, minority concept that's applied to Asian Americans. And when you look at Asia, we're talking about a very wide, region, right? We have, East Asians, Japanese Americans, Korean Americans, Chinese. We have Southeast Asians as well. And then I think in terms of the income disparity, even amongst Asian American, it's the largest, right? Yes, we have this model minority who, goes to Ivy League schools, they learn music. I unfortunately do not fall into that Asian American category. There are many Asian Americans who are also, in the poverty level, struggling. And so I think that perception that all Asian Americans are equal, I think that's one misperception. I think also Asian Americans community also need to come together. We don't necessarily collaborate as well as we should be, and hopefully, I think with this, I'm an eternal optimist, and so despite what's happening, I see hope when we have, African American communities coming together to support what's happening, to put a stop. I hope that this also brings the Asian American community at large together to stand against and unite, because there's just been a lot of also disconnection amongst Asian Americans as well. Going back to sort of, what's sort of the trait that I recognize, I actually co-founded You Are the CEO of You leadership program for Asian Americans. That's at San Francisco Asian American Business League. Wait, Asian Business League of San Francisco. They're gonna kill me if I butcher their name. And really, one of the core things that we touched upon when we work with these mid-level managers was to be able to talk about their achievements. Because I think in Asian culture, boasting about your achievements is frowned upon. But in the American society here, right, in the US, you have to fend for yourself. And you have to, ask for recognition when you have done something that's contributed to the company. And so that's something that we recognize over and over again, that Asian, because of, I think, the value system that we grew up in from our parents' generation, that we don't do a good job of. So that's something that we talked about, a lot. And I think just being able to recognize that, and then working towards how do we promote ourselves in a positive way, of course. And when there's an opportunity that comes our way, not to shy away from it, but embrace it and seize that opportunity is some of the things that we recognize. I think that's, very, some of the common traits of Asian Americans that we see, hopefully will be changing.
Great. No, that's fantastic insight. There's like different elements there, from diversity just within the Asian community itself, the Asian community coming together, the socioeconomic, right, the strata that exists, and then also the shifting culture to speak up to yourself. So speak of yourself and advocate on your behalf. So
advocate, yeah, that's the word.
Yeah. So no, thank you very much for sharing some of that. And I know we're just about at time. I wanted to, any last words for the audience and in sharing what's next for igniteXL?
One of the things, I think the questions that you had that I thought about that got me thinking about, okay, so what's, why is this important, or what are we hoping to accomplish? And I think in terms of, focusing on this beauty and wellness sector and backing these entrepreneurs, our hope is that it would democratize access and help everyone be, well and healthy. Because with technology, I think being, making all these products and solutions be more accessible to different groups. Otherwise, again, as I mentioned, underserved, overlooked markets, making it more cheaper, affordable, right? Because I think wellness was seemingly sort of out of reach for many people, and I think with technology we're able to make this more accessible to the mass. So I think our hope is that this whole personal care, self-care, is not just something that we think of as people with a lot of money can do, but that all of us really need to take responsible for ourselves and take care of ourselves, and ultimately create healthy, happy, and well society.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Claire, for sharing that insight, and for everyone watching. This was RBL1 Live. Claire Chang, everyone, founding partner of igniteXL Ventures. So, thanks again for joining us, Claire.